July. 1st of July. Dear children, I must tell you that something marvellous has happened. Once, Sandy and I planted some crumbs, hoping they would grow into biscuits, and they didn't. Well, Sandy buried a bone the other day, and when I was passing by the place this morning, whatever do you think it had grown into? Why, 3 fine kippers. There they were, exactly over the spot where Sandy had buried the bone. Pat was there too, just going to eat the kippers, but I sent her off. They are what Sandy grew, I growled. Well, Sandy wasn't anywhere about, so I ate them in case they went bad, and they were the best kippers I'd ever tasted. Don't you think that's wonderful, to plant a bone and make kippers come up? I'm going to see if any more have grown. Yours to a kipper, Bobs. P.S. I'm off to hide. Mistress just called out, who stole the breakfast kippers? I didn't steal them, did I? But I ate them, and I thought they'd grown. Really, I did. 8th of July. Dear children, I'm in trouble again, but it wasn't my fault, really. You see, I went down to the river, and I saw a lot of men there, sitting down watching a sort of rod thing, which had a string tied at the end, going down into the water. Sandy said they were fishing. I went and I sniffed at all their baskets to see what they had for their dinners. One man had some delicious sandwiches, and somehow or other I found them in my mouth, although I don't really remember how they got there. I felt pleased with the man for having such nice sandwiches, so I lay down by him and listened to what he was saying to the man next to him. He said, I wish I could have a bite. I haven't had a bite for weeks. I should be pleased if I got a good bite. Well, wasn't that a funny thing to say, boys and girls? I mean, people can't bear being bitten usually, and Mistress has always told me never to bite anyone. And he was a man longing for a good bite, and I felt I really must give him what he wanted, as I had enjoyed his sandwiches so much. So I gave him a nice bite on his leg, but he wasn't a bit pleased. He jumped up. He said, how dare you bite me? He said. I ran off with my tail down. But really, children, don't you think that man was silly to ask for a bite, and then because I gave him one? A good fat bite from Bobs. 14th of July. Dear children, Mistress likes to tell us how to make a potpourri. Well, let me tell you that I have smelt her potpourri, and it all smelt of was old rose petals. Now, if it had smelt really exciting of fish and juicy bones, for instance, I could understand her making it, but why bother to keep a smell of roses? I never did care much for flower smells. Now, Sandy and I are going to make a fine potpourri of our own, which will be much better than Mistress's and have a really fine smell. Here is the recipe. Please use it as much as you'd like. Take 3 old bones from the rubbish heap, find the remains of a kipper and mix with the bones, but be careful someone doesn't eat it first. We had to go without because Sandy swallowed it by mistake. And add a few soaked biscuits and sprinkle the whole thing with oil from a sardine tin. Leave for a few days and then open the jar and when you want a fine perfume in your kennel. Now isn't that the best scent you ever heard of? A few sniffs of it from Bobs. P.S. The best thing about our potpourri is that when you are tired of smelling it, you can eat it all up. 15th of July. Dear children, will you please tell me something? How much will the seaside cost to buy? I'll tell you why I want one. It's because Mistress and Master and Gillian and Imogen all go off to the seaside in the summer of each year, and Sandy and I are left to guard Old Thatch. Now, if I could buy a seaside and put it in the garden somewhere by the summer house, perhaps nobody would need to go away to find it, would they? So, if you know of any shop that sells seasides, send me a card and let me know. I have about 7 pence in my money box, and surely that is enough to buy a really fine seaside. Gillian says she's going to send me a jellyfish home. I do wonder what it will be like. Sandy says it will be a jelly made of fish, but I think it will be a fish made of jelly. Anyway, if it's the first, we shall eat it, and if it's the second, we shall put it into our bowl of drinking water and keep it for a pet. We shall call it Shivery Shake, I think. Do you think it will learn its name and come when it's called? We would be so pleased. Now everyone is starting off for the seaside, so I must go and woof goodbye. Well, wait till I buy my own little seaside. What a surprise for everyone. A shivery shake from Bobs. 29th of July. Dear children, 3 cheers and a loud hip hip hooray. They're back again from their holiday, all as brown as apple pips. Hurrah, hurrah, hooray, and 3 hip hip hips. You know I'm glad, children, because I bark some poetry, and I never do that unless I'm very happy and jolly, and then it just woofs out of me. Sandy and I, Binkle and Pitterpet, gave them all such a welcome. Pat has been moping, so she wasn't there. We didn't know where she was, so for the next 3 days we all of us hunted in the fields around to find her and tell her the news. Binkle found her, and when she heard the good news, you should have seen how she hurried home. The gardener has built Gillian a swing in the garden, and today Gillian told me she'd give me a treat, so she lifted me up onto the seat and gave the seat a push. Oh, tails and whiskers! It went up and down, to and fro, and I kept slipping this way and that, trying not to fall off. You can go high if you like, Bobs, Gillian said, and push the seat again. Up I went, and down I came, kaplunk, onto the grass below. That's the last time I have a swing. Sandy laughed at me till he cried, but when I said, you go and have a treat too, he wouldn't. A few hip, hip, hips, but no haws from Bobs.